By popular request in the comments, today we're going to be taking a look at some Lenovo Flex 5 alternatives. I'm also going to be just comparing them to the Flex 5 in general so that you know what to expect if you're going to consider one of these over the unit I've reviewed. I have not taken a look at any of these machines in person yet, so these are impressions based off of maintenance manuals and specs that I'm able to find, as well as any reviews I found online while I was doing my research. If you want to see me review any of these machines before you actually go out and buy one, please let me know in the comments so that I know what people are actually interested in. I have my own ideas on what I want to look at, but if there's something you guys really want to see, I might just have to take a look at it. So let's start with the good. Other than the Flex 5 at the moment, there's the Lenovo IdeaPad 5, and I've heard a lot about this one in the comment section. I'm specifically talking about the IdeaPad 5 14-inch, not the 15-inch that I've seen a lot of reviews and such on. Pretty much everyone wants to know, well, what's the difference between the IdeaPad 5 and the Flex 5? Basically, the main differences are that the IdeaPad 5 has an aluminum keyboard deck, like, you know, the top palmrest bit. This part here on the IdeaPad 5 should be like an aluminum surface. So that's a perk if you're looking for maybe a better exterior material. One of the main outstanding differences compared to the IdeaPad 5 is that the power button over here is relocated up above the keyboard, and the fingerprint reader is also integrated in the power button. The heat sinks are very similar, and the performance you get on the IdeaPad 5, per some reviews I've seen, is very close. You can often find the IdeaPad 5 with an IPS panel, but be aware that, like the Flex 5, it has a TN option, which will give you worse viewing angles in slightly worse color. Memory is also 3200 MHz, but it's restricted to 8 GB in pretty much every US model at the moment. So that means that, unfortunately, until Lenovo opens the IdeaPad 5 up for customized ordering, we'll only be able to see 8 GB within the US. France is actually the only country that has a 16 GB IdeaPad 5 model, so let me know in the comments if you wish you lived in France, because I'd love a 16 GB IdeaPad 5 personally, but unfortunately, that's not an option. The IdeaPad 5 also has soldered RAM with no upgradability, and the screen also has no support for touch or stylus like the Flex 5, unfortunately. Another alternative would be the HP ProBook 445G7. This is something I've known about for a while, and I've wanted to look at one of these. Basically, it's a business laptop that is highly configurable. You can buy it without Windows. The cooler it comes with is similar to the dual pipe on the Flex 5, so it should get fairly similar thermals, software allowing, of course. It has 2 SODIMM slots for memory, so you can completely upgrade the memory as far as 4 GB to 32 GB with 2 16 GB sticks. It does have 7.5 less watt hours of battery, so you're stuck with a 45 watt hour battery, unfortunately, which will definitely yield worse battery life overall. It does have a 2.5-inch bay and an M.2 slot, so if you wanted to have dual SSDs, you could definitely do that as long as you buy it with like a hard drive. Then you could slap in a SATA SSD or one of those NVMe to 2.5-inch adapters, as well as an M.2 SSD. The memory is only single channel if you buy it through HP, unless you buy 32 GB of it, so that's a pretty big downside, and I think it has something to do with the fact that businesses are buying these, so they might just open it and drop another stick in. But yeah, so you'll only have single channel if you buy directly from HP. They're very cheap if you purchase them without a Windows license. For instance, you can get it for around $600 to $700 with a 4500U if you just don't buy the Windows license, and you can even get the nice screen. The I/O is very similar to the IdeaPad 5. It also has an Ethernet port, so that's a nice upside. But the quality is pretty much unknown. I haven't heard a lot about this. I might want to review this personally for my channel, but I'm not sure if I'm going to cover it. I don't know if there's interest, but it should be a pretty solid machine. It's very ThinkPad-like. If you're a fan of the upgradability that it seems to offer, as well as the cooling, just let me know in the comments and I'll take a look at it. Now, before we move on to the more mediocre laptops, let's talk about an upcoming one that's kind of interesting. We have the ThinkPad T14, the AMD version. Pricing at the moment is pretty much unknown, but what we do know is that it'll have 1 SODIMM slot with 1 soldered stick of memory. It'll have 3200 MHz memory as well, so that's good for performance. The cooler is a dual pipe cooler, which is also great for performance. We've seen some rumors that the Ryzen Pro processors that this will ship with actually yield quite a lot of performance compared to their non-Pro variants, so it's possible we'll be seeing some serious performance improvements on these chips compared to, for instance, the Flex 5. One notable thing is that they have SMT enabled, which allows them to have 2 threads for each core, overall improving speed and efficiency of the cores in general. It has a 50 watt-hour battery, 2.5 less watt-hours than the Flex 5, which will probably shave off like half an hour or so from your battery life, if not less. You'll also be able to get the T14 with a WAN card, so if you're a fan of being always connected with LTE access on your laptop, you can do that. But at the moment, not a lot is known about the T14. We haven't seen any reviews of it, and we've pretty much only seen press kits and specs, so it'll be a little while before I know more. But yeah, on the more questionable side of alternatives for the Flex 5, I'm actually going to be talking about 4 laptops here. We have the Lenovo IdeaPad 3, which is either a 15-inch or a 17-inch laptop, depending on which variant you got. I was able to find it for $529 from Office Depot. It's possible to get an IPS panel with this version, but you have to really be careful and make sure you're looking up your MTM, which should be like start with a 80 or an 81. If you're looking at IdeaPads, you'll want to look that up on psref.lenovo.com. Just put it in the search bar and look and see if you can find if it has an IPS or TN panel. You want the IPS panels, by the way. Often it only comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty much a bummer, but it does have an open SODIMM slot, so if you want to upgrade that to 16, that's plenty possible. The memory is 32 megahertz as well, so it's at least fast memory. It does come single channel out of the box though, which sucks. It's not terribly much cheaper than the Flex 5, really. For, again, like $530 on sale from Office Depot is not a super great deal. That's only $70 cheaper, and realistically, you're getting a lot less for your purchase. You're not getting 2-in-1 hinges, you're not getting a touch screen, you're probably not getting as good of a panel, you're definitely not getting stylus support. Luckily, you do get upgradable RAM, but it's just not super great. The battery in it's not super good either. For instance, on the 14-inch version, you might either get a 35 watt-hour battery or a 45 watt-hour battery, which the 35 watt-hour battery is nearing half the battery size that's in the Flex 5. So if you're willing to sacrifice quite a lot, the IdeaPad 3 might be decent, but it's only got a single pipe cooler, so it's not going to be performing nearly as well as the Flex 5 or IdeaPad 5 for sure. From HP, we have the HP Envy X360 2-in-1, which is a consumer laptop that I've gotten a lot of questions about. Often you can find it for around $700, but it tends to be more. It's hard to find on Amazon at the moment, pretty much going out of stock. The cooler is only a single pipe cooler, so you're not going to get nearly as much performance as the Flex 5 out of it for sure. You can only find it with 8 gigabytes of memory. This seems to be a pretty reoccurring pattern for Ryzen 4000 based machines in the US, which is a bummer, but I'd just stick to the Flex 5 if you're looking for gaming performance and just wait for the stock to come back. Some of the lower price configurations come with a really small SSD, which really sucks. I mean, it's like 128 gigabytes, and considering that some people were only having around 118 gigabytes free of space on their 256 gig drive on the Flex 5, it's pretty easy to assume you wouldn't have much room left over after that first 128 and a Windows install. And other than that, I just don't know a lot about it. There's not a ton of reviews on HP machines just because there's so many variants. It's just really difficult to really find reviews on them. So I don't really know if it's any good. If you bought one and you liked it, or you bought one and you didn't like it, be sure to let me know in the comments. I'll read all the comments, so if you have any idea how these machines are, let me know. If you want to see me look at them, again, just let me know. And lastly, we have the Acer Swift 3, which can be found for about $650 to $750 depending on the variant, if not a little more. This one has seen a lot of purchases as far as I'm able to tell. It's very popular. It's known to be decent by a number of people that I've talked to. The Swift 3 line is just pretty good in general, at least over the last couple of years. Unfortunately, the screen is not as great as it is in the Flex 5. It's still usable, but it's not nearly as good. Again, with this reoccurring pattern, there's only 8 gigabytes of RAM available, and there's no SODIMM slot to upgrade it, but luckily it's 3200 megahertz, so you'll still have that good performance. On Amazon, you can only really get the 4700U variant, which is about $750 at the moment, and it's pretty much almost out of stock. And really, you end up paying $150 more for 8 gigabytes less of memory, about 20 watts less cooling, and an overall worse screen, and it's not available directly from Acer. So yeah, the Swift 3 is not the best deal at the moment, unfortunately. If it had 16 gigabytes of memory, it might be a better option, especially at the price point, but it's just hard to justify given that you're only getting half the memory, and really the screen's not that good, and it's also not a 2-in-1. There's plenty of downsides there. And also, I've compared the performance of the Swift 3 in my early review, and even with the better processor, the Swift 3 performs just above, like 1% above the Flex 5 with the worst processor. And the Flex 5 with a good processor, according to some scores that I've seen inside of my Discord, people are getting anywhere from 500 points higher than the Swift 3's score, which works out to be about anywhere from like 12 to 15% depending on what score you got on the Swift 3. There's also the Inspiron 7000 2-in-1. This is a pretty interesting one just because no one's talking about it. There's only one review I was able to find online, and I referenced this for the performance of Vega graphics on my Discord at the moment. The 4700U in that machine got a pretty good Firestrike score. It also did pretty good in GTA V, but the thing is, again, this only comes with 8 gigs of memory. It does have 2 SODIMM slots, so you can upgrade it luckily. It is 3200 megahertz. So luckily you don't have to deal with slow memory, but the battery is quite small. It does come with a bigger battery option that's possible. The bigger battery option is about half a watt hour bigger than the Flex 5's battery. The smaller battery option is only 42 watt hours, so it's quite a bit smaller than the Flex 5's battery. And it's smaller than some of the 45 watt hour batteries we've seen in the other units. And on top of that, it only has a single pipe cooler, so it's just not a super good option unless you can find one with a 53 watt hour battery, which at the moment Dell is not selling, so you can't get that at the moment. With the 2 SODIMM slots, it's nice. You'll be able to, upgrade your memory to your will, but again, single pipe cooler. There's only one form of storage possible on this unit as well, so it's not like you can have the dual storage like in the ProBook. So yeah, overall, I'd recommend you just look at the HP ProBook over this thing because it's just not a great option, and there's no latitudes that are available with Ryzen 4000 at the moment. Otherwise, I'd be talking about those. Now let's move on to pretty much the bottom of the barrel for Ryzen 4000 laptops. While we have the top of the barrel, the Flex 5, we have the bottom of the barrel, which is the Lenovo V14ARE. This is a very, very cheap computer. You can find them for around 300 bucks at times. They're just really cheap. The variant I found was a 4500U with 8 gigabytes and a 256 gigabyte SSD. The SSD it comes with is only a 2x low-end NVMe drive, which means it's probably pretty terrible. I mean, given the price point, it can't be too good, I'd imagine. I haven't seen any benchmarks of it or even any reviews of this unit, so I don't know for sure, but I can say that it probably isn't very good. The RAM is only 2666 megahertz, so performance will take a hit there, which is a bummer. For the 8 gigabyte variants, there's 4 gigabytes of soldered memory, so you can't cleanly upgrade to 16 gigabytes. You could upgrade to 20 or 12, but you can't upgrade to 16, and you will run into some issues trying to do dual channel stuff in some ways. The cooler is basically the same as the IdeaPad 3. It's a single pipe and pretty bad, so don't expect some wonderful thermals. Luckily, Lenovo ships the device dual channel out of the box, but since the rest of the device isn't really optimized for performance, I really wouldn't consider that to be too big of a perk, and overall it's just a worse IdeaPad 3. That's about it for the devices I was able to find. If you found anything that I missed doing your own research, let me know in the comments or in the Discord, and I might make a follow-up video talking about them. If you want to see me review any of the laptops I talked about during this video, let me know in the comments or in the Discord. I'll have a poll in the comments where you can vote on each of these if you want to see me review them. Other than that, be sure to check out the links in the description for these devices if any of them sounded interesting to you. I'll have either Amazon links or other store links in the description pointing to at least a recent listing for these machines. They're going pretty quick, so it's likely a lot of them you'll see will be out of stock by the time you get here. If they're not, well, that's great. That's all for the video, and I hope this was helpful.